Hey Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View. We've got more about the Star Wars galaxy today, and we're coming just off the heels of San Diego Comic-Con, so plenty of news to sort through. We're going to get to it in just a second, but I just want to remind you that you can go to our website, certainpov.com, and you can check out all of our podcasts there. You can rate, review, and subscribe to all of them, or just the ones that you like. All of them are there, again, at certainpov.com. Let's get right into this news, so there was a ton of news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con this year. Marvel Studios kind of stood out of the way, and most big Star Wars news was kind of out of the way. There was plenty of stuff with toys and fashion and all sorts of other stuff, but what we're going to focus on a little bit today is more the, I guess, storytelling that's coming out of Star Wars in the near future that they talked about. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first big the big thing we're going to save for last. But the publishing panel was actually really fascinating, especially since, Ben and I, we've been getting into the comics a whole lot more lately.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying reading the comic books and catching up on that side of the Star Wars culture and storytelling. It's surprisingly diverse and surprisingly well done. Yeah. I guess I shouldn't say it's surprising, because it's not really surprising, but it is really well done.
Well, I think it's worth saying surprisingly diverse, because that, especially the comic that you and I read today, and we're going to record our episode next week. We're actually going to be talking about the Thrawn series. So there's some really interesting stuff that has implications for the bigger Star Wars universe and some of the bigger story that could be told in the future, whether that's through movies or TV or even if it stays just in comics. There's some really cool stuff coming along the way. So if you're someone who feels that Disney Star Wars may not be scratching the right itch for you, you know what? I think that's where the TV shows like Rebels and the comics, and if you want to take the time for the books as well, I think you can scratch that itch with all of that storytelling material. So I think there's plenty of options there. Lots of kid books coming out. We've got The Mighty Chewbacca and the Forest of Fear. We've got there's a sort of a book called it's Are You Scared of Darth Vader, for someone someone who's making a book for his son. And then we've got stuff. We've got stuff like ABC 3PO and Obi-Wan T3. We've got more books in the Jedi Academy series. So those always look like a lot of fun as well. We've got some Choose Your Adventure books. One of the bigger ones that might actually have implications if you're someone who cares a little bit more about like the bigger storytelling. Some of the young adult books are also coming out. We have Flight of the Falcon. We've got Lando's Luck. So that's a young adult series we're going to get that's going to maybe expand out just a little bit more of the story of the young Lando Calrissian that we saw in Solo. We're also getting Pirate's Price. It looks like we have some interaction between Hondo and a young Han and Chewie as well. So
that would be cool. I'm totally into hear that.
Right. So now, and of course, that's another young adult book as well. And we've got a variety of other things as well. We also have, we have like the sort of the coffee table books and the ones that sort of celebrate certain aspects of Star Wars. Amy Ratcliffe from Nerdist News is actually publishing her own book called Women of the Galaxy, and just kind of focusing in on lots of different female characters in the Star Wars galaxy. What looks really cool though is from the preview I saw of this is the art in it looks amazing. Like there's a lot of like yeah.
Is she doing the art, or where is she getting the art from?
She's brought together a lot of different fan artists, and while she's written sort of like the profiles and sort of the 75 different female characters across the Star Wars universe of storytelling, she's gathered sort of apparently it's more than 100 different illustrations. of these female characters.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's sort of it looks like a cool looking book, It's not something that you're gonna have to rush out if you want the latest details on what's happening in canon. But along with the Art of Star Wars books, this seems like something that kind of fits in that category of
right.
you keep it on your coffee table to look a little bit more educated and have a little bit more prestige.
And if you're single, you're like, hey, look, I like ladies too.
Right.
Look at me.
Of all races.
And if you're an old white married guy like me, you're like, oh, that'd be nice to flip through once.
Right. Yeah, so we've got all sorts of stuff like that. We're expecting the Star Wars, the Solo: A Star Wars Story novelization should be coming out soon, and then the comic miniseries adapting that will also be coming real soon as well. Implications, one of the teases for that, though, for the Solo adaptation, is that there might be some bigger connections for the future of that story, because Solo is sort of the beginning to a story. There's clearly room left for growth there, so there might be a few more plot details that might set up some of that stuff in there as well. So...
Yeah, I would be shocked if we didn't get more to Kira's story and Enfys Nest and stuff like that. They did such a great job of setting it up. I don't know that we'll see it in the movies,
right?
But in books and comic books and other places, I think they'll fill in those lines.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of major novels, we can expect a new novel about Padme, actually. So,
Where's Padme is what it should be called. That's what it should be called.
Well, it's going to be called Queen's Shadow instead.
It should be like a Where's Waldo book.
You're right.
Where's Padme? I would get that coloring book for my kids. That's a kid book that I want to make.
You know what? Maybe you need to pitch that idea. I think it's not too far away from people wanting to get that. I think there are plenty of, even if people don't get it for their kids, there'll be people like you and me that end up getting it.
I would totally get that. I would spend hours coloring that and just looking through it. That would be the best. I'm going to do that. Quick, copyright that before somebody else steals this.
Right. Well, it's going to cover Padme, though, just as she's become queen and just as she's been elected. So it's beginning, just before the Phantom Menace. So,
okay.
Yeah, maybe there might be some interesting story right there. We also have another novel. This one, I think, also in that pre-Phantom Menace era. We're going to get, from Claudia Gray, we're going to get a book called Master and Apprentice, covering the story of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi and them going on a dangerous mission together. So
I am all in for this one.
Me too.
I want to know more about Qui-Gon. I really do. I love Obi-Wan, so I'm already in, but then you throw in Qui-Gon into the mix, and I am so into this story.
Yeah.
I'm actually, this is the first time I'm legitimately excited about a Star Wars book.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I have a feeling I might get that one pretty much as soon as it releases, because that's one that I'd be pretty excited about getting into as well. So, of course, we love talking about the Star Wars comics, so let's actually get into some of the upcoming comics that we can explore. And so just around some of that news, the Poe Dameron series will be wrapping up real soon with issue 31. So that's been running actually since Marvel started their new sort of run of Star Wars comics. So
have you read any of Poe?
I've read the first 8 issues. It's actually really good.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I've been kind of avoiding it because I'm not a Poe Dameron fan, and I know that
neither am I.
That hurts people's feelings right now because people until the last Jedi, people were pretty high on Poe, and I didn't see the appeal to that character yet, so I've been kind of avoiding it because
there was a lot of it almost felt like you were supposed to like him too much. With the way, they tried a little too hard to make you like him in Force Awakens. So I get that thought process. I kind of felt like I didn't really get interested in Poe until The Last Jedi. But because there was a Star Wars comic, I was going to read it. So,
right.
And what I did read helped with some of it. It sort of leads up to some of the events, right? Where you find him going on that mission for Leia to find Luke. So they're different stuff like that helps flesh out that character a whole lot more, and the bigger story that's happening as well, that doesn't need to be in Force Awakens or in The Last Jedi. So I think there's some really interesting things there. Greg Grunberg's character's in there as well. Jessica Henwick's character's in there as well. So, like that, some of those other people that you see as part of his squadron are also there. So, which is also kind of cool. And from what I understand, at some point they've kind of jumped in time with the Poe Dameron series, and they've picked up right after The Last Jedi as well. So there might be some interesting stuff there that I've got to check. But yeah, anyway, that story's wrapping up real soon. That's Charles Soule is writing that series. Then upcoming, though, we've got some new stuff. We've got also Charles Soule is the current Darth Vader series right now, which is absolutely amazing. Every time an issue of that comes out, I have to step away from whatever I'm doing to read it. And we're going to find out a little bit more about how Vader got his castle. So that's going to be, I'm pretty excited about that. So far, there's been a lot of, everything that they've done in this series so far has been a huge hit. So I'm really excited to see what the deal is with this, because everything has stayed very character-centric in that Vader series, and has been very revealing about how Vader operates, and is just absolutely amazing content. So I'm even more excited that we're going to find out about how Vader got his castle. Outside of that, we're also getting, let's see, what are we're getting, outside of the Marvel comics, imprint, IDW is publishing a mini-series. We're sticking with Vader's Castle, but it's called Tales from Vader's Castle. It'll be a little bit more of a horror series. It's a mini-series where, and here's the description, join a ragtag band of rebels in this weekly 5-issue mini-series filled with eerie adventures from across the Star Wars saga. Told in the shadow of Vader's Castle, these spooky stories feature Hera, Kanan, and Chopper, Han Solo and Chewbacca, the Ewoks, and of course Darth Vader himself. So beware the tales of Vader's Castle. So
just say Ewoks?
Yeah, these are all separate. It seems like these are all going to be completely separate stories.
What the fuck would Ewoks be on Mustafar?
Well, I mean, we're talking probably after the rebellion. Once they've been introduced.
Okay. I don't know. This one sounds a little bit of a stretch for me. I'm sorry, but it's like, oh, everybody we know is at Vader's castle.
Well, not all at once.
No, I know, not all at once, but even still, it's a huge galaxy. It just, I don't know. It seems this one is a bit of a stretch for me to go. Oh, this makes total sense. Ewoks on Mustafar. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, you're stuck on the Ewoks part. Well, we'll see. It seems like a Tales from the Crypt type of thing. So, I don't know how serious canon this will be, or if it's more just hey, let's just have fun with this kind, just some weird stories that.
But we can tell. Aren't we in the part where everything is canon? Everything coming out is official, right?
Well, I mean, you don't count a lot of the kids stuff necessarily. It's not like a coloring book is considered canon.
Right.
This is not off of Marvel. This is IDW's publishing. I mean, it could be. I don't know. Have you seen the images of what it looks like?
No.
I really like the covers. They look really cool. Let me send you a link while we're still talking it up. But you have to scroll down a bit there. But it's. I don't know. I think it looks like just fun anthology short story style.
No, and I'm okay with that. It just you say just so are you scared of Vader? Yeah. Search your feelings. That's going to be a great book for my kids.
Right.
Totally getting that. Let's see.
You're getting
Queen
close.
Shadow.
It's right after Queen
Darth
Shadow.
Vader. Solo.
No, you've gone too far.
I gone too far.
Right above Darth Vader
right.
is Vader's castle.
Oh yeah, I see it. Oh yeah, and the art is cool. I don't know, man. I mean, the art is cool. It just seems
that cover with Dooku and the young Obi-Wan with like it looks like Minox vampiric Minox or something. Looks pretty sweet.
No, it all looks really cool. I'm just curious whether or not like.
Well, have you taken a look at that Ewok cover?
They feature. It's odd to me that you would have everybody come to Vader's castle, and I understand it's not all at the same time, but still, like Hera and Kanan going to Vader's castle and Chopper just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Solo and Chewie kind of makes sense, I guess. Ewoks definitely don't make sense. And of course, Darth Vader himself. Yeah, I'm curious to see what this actually is.
And Obi-Wan?
Dooku makes sense. Obi-Wan makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan should not be near Vader's castle. Right? I mean, think about it, because the last time he sees Anakin, he cuts him and leaves him for dead to burn, and then he goes and watches Padme die of sadness, and then he gets the kids, hides Leia with Jimmy Smits, and then takes Luke to Tatooine, and then he hides out, and he doesn't see Vader again until the Death Star.
This looks like it's before all of that, though, because if it's you've got a picture of Dooku and Obi-Wan, so that has to be before the end of the Clone Wars. So maybe there's significance to the structure even before Vader.
I guess. I don't know. Okay, well, we'll see what it is. My
skeptical
eye. I'm a little skeptical on this one. I hope to be pleasantly surprised, and I probably will be. I don't know why. Like this one has raised my skeptical.
Well, the moment Ewoks enter the picture, you get skeptical no matter what. That triggers your.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Come on. We're doing a little too much with these things.
So the author says, you know how you get those spooky Halloween stories where a car breaks down and there's a creepy castle on a hill? Well, imagine a spaceship landing on a lava planet and the only place is a castle on a hill. So it's a haunted house series, essentially.
Okay.
Star Wars
all right.
So,
seems ridiculous, but okay. But okay. I'll probably, it's probably going to end up being my favorite thing ever.
Right? Well, to me, this feels like something that doesn't have the weight of canon on it, and that is just, here's fun, scary stories, and we're getting to play in a slightly different genre than we usually get to play in with Star Wars. And that's something I really I'm all for, is playing in different genres within the Star Wars universe in the same way that they have been with Marvel. So I think that's a good thing, personally.
Yep.
So
all right, cool.
Then the new Marvel comics that will be coming out, we have got a series called, so it's going to be a 30-issue maxi series. It's going to chronicle a lot of the different iconic heroes and villains from across the galaxy. And this 30-issue series, sort of three different series is combining into one, essentially. And there's Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance. So it's basically this big event that's coming this December, and the first issues of these will both be Age of Republic issues, Qui-Gon and a Darth Maul issue. So sort of one-offs for each of these characters, which I like the idea of, like, one-offs a lot of the time too. You know, not even necessarily a 5 or 6 issue miniseries. I think sometimes these one-offs are really fun, can be really fun. So, other than that, anything you want to say about comics or
no? I mean,
novels?
like, that's what a great time. I mean, so much content. Like it's funny because a couple months ago we were just doing like general nerd news, right? Because and we found ourselves in a position where we were like, there's just too much for us to reasonably have anything important to say about this other than just announcing what happened,
right?
You know, and so we decided, all right, well, let's just switch back to Star Wars. Let's refocus everything back to Star Wars and really focus in on that. And now I feel like we're in the same boat where I'm like, I can't possibly read all of this. I can't watch all of this. Like, when am I supposed to have time? It's such a great, like, there's so much content coming out and it all looks really good. I mean, I've skeptical eyes on some of of it, and I could be completely wrong, and I'm open to that possibility. I'm not like, oh, this is stupid, Disney's ruining everything. That's not where I'm coming from. But man, what a lot of great stuff. Like the books alone. Like I said, this is the first time in decades where I said I'm excited about a new Star Wars novel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that I wouldn't read a Star Wars novel before, not that I haven't enjoyed Star Wars novels before, but I'm legitimately excited about a Star Wars novel.
Right.
So we're in a great place, man. We're in a great place. I think Star Wars is doing gangbusters. I loved all the announcements that we've gotten so far about this stuff. I think it's great. What about you?
I'm totally excited about it. I mean, the thing is, you just gotta attach Star Wars to the title for me, and I'm probably gonna get excited. I have a low threshold to enter, but my standards will rise as I'm interacting with the media. You know, I think I tend to be a lot more forgiving, because I tend to try to figure out, okay, what are they trying to tell me, and are they being effective at the story they're trying to tell me? Instead of necessarily saying,
is this the story I wanted?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a little bit more a little bit more open to whatever story they're going to tell me. One thing I find very fascinating, though, with a good portion of these stories is a lot of this is prequel territory, which I think is very fascinating, because that's been, yes, they've touched into it here and there, but they've been very hesitant about jumping into the prequels. But they are fully embracing those movies a little bit more right now, and really sort of fleshing it out a whole lot more, which for me right now is adding a lot of depth to stories that I didn't really appreciate for a number of reasons. Some of them good, some of them bad. But it is now, we've talked about Clone Wars and just what that did for the prequels, and as far as the characters in the prequels and the arcs that they went on. So I'm excited about what these potentially can do in the same vein.
Yeah, and I think that as time has gone on, you're now at there's a larger group of fandom that grew up with the prequels, and that was their introduction to Star Wars.
Right.
And so there's a lot more people who are vocally open and excited about the prequel movies. When you have major podcasts within the community and groups within the community, I'm thinking of Steel Wars and his group of podcasters who are all of that generation and who love the prequels. I'm not surprised that they feel more confident and are encouraged to explore that area more and right. to give that fan base what they're looking for. And it's cool. It's very cool. Yeah.
Now, of course, we're talking about growing up with the prequels. You and I were early adopters for the Clone Wars. And I've almost felt it's one of those things that I'm almost an evangelist for the Clone Wars. Lots of other close Star Wars friends who had given up on their Star Wars fandom after Revenge of the Sith. I've constantly preached to them that they got to watch the Clone Wars series, and I still continue to do for some who still don't quite believe me. And I find a lot of those people are some of the people who aren't crazy about Star Wars right now, even under Disney. But when people,
let those people go.
Well, you know what?
Let them go. Be free.
Fair enough. Although I do find a number of people who are willing to embrace both Clone Wars and Rebels also happen to like Last Jedi as well. That's not a solid rule. There are plenty of people I know who don't, but I feel like they have a greater appreciation for the Star Wars story and the diversity of stories within the Star Wars universe, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, because you have more than just 6 stories to pull from. You have, right. Once you get into the Clone Wars and once you get into Rebels, like you said, it opens up that universe so much more and opens up what a Jedi is, what a Sith is, and opens up that universe to a lot broader interpretation than a simple, than the prequels in the original trilogy.
Well, and beyond just Jedi and Sith, you have the horror stories, you've got you've got your war stories. I mean, the clones alone, the fact that they got personality and we had individual clones that you could get attached to as well. Like there's showing the like clones with actual heart was something that has really added to that story a whole lot more. So, obviously when Disney bought Star Wars, though, Clone Wars was still kind of in the middle of things, and Ahsoka had just left, but there was still a couple seasons left is what we had heard. But it was cut short. Cartoon Network ended up canceling it when Disney bought bought Star Wars. And at that point, we went through a slightly dark period without any new Star Wars content, and then we got Rebels, and Rebels was absolutely amazing. But one of the things I absolutely love about Rebels is they ended it on its own terms. Like they decided, 4 seasons is what we're going to go with. They ended it. They gave it a solid conclusion. Sure, they've set up threads for future stories, but they gave that arc for Ezra and the Ghost crew and the rest of the Ghost crew was incredibly solid. But there's also been sort of this feeling of this lack of closure with Clone Wars. I think you not as much, but I've definitely been one of those people that would love for them to have come back and finish up the Clone Wars, just to give us that sense of closure. And we've got like little stories here and there. Some of we've got animatics that are on the Star Wars website, like the Bad Batch, and and a story with Obi-Wan and Anakin on what is the planet that Obi-Wan is on during Order 66. But it's when they're...
I don't remember.
Yeah, there's a story on that planet as apparently tracking part of what's going to eventually become part of the Death Star. But you also have some really good conversations with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Now that Ahsoka is no longer in his life, you start really feeling Anakin's loss of faith a whole lot stronger at that point. And just the him and Obi-Wan, you feel the strength of Obi-Wan and Anakin's friendship in a way that you can't with Ahsoka being in the picture, but you also really start seeing the way that the two of them start splitting as well. And it's really fascinating with those little bits of storytelling. We had the Asajj Ventress novel. So we've had these different elements out here. We had an Ahsoka novel, and of course Ahsoka then showed up on Rebels. And Dave Filoni has kind of told like ideas of what was going to happen if he got a chance to wrap up the Clone Wars. Well, fortunately, we are going to see that end. And
yes!
I could not be more excited.
Unbelievable announcement. I had heard rumors. Rumors that this was coming, yeah.
Oh, I did not. So that took me by surprise.
So when you messaged me, I was like, oh yeah, I had heard about that. As it was happening, I was like, "Oh, I thought, I was that." And then I messaged you. I was like, "Wait, is it actually happening?" Because I had heard rumors that it was going to happen. I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic."
When you say rumors, you heard it when the panel was happening at Comic-Con.
No, I had heard it like a week or two before. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really?
That they were bringing Clone Wars back. Yeah. I don't remember where I read it. Yeah. And I don't remember who I read it from.
Because the people at the panel were sure surprised, including the moderator of the panel, who's Nerdist Amy Radcliffe, actually, who's a huge fan of the animated Star Wars universe. So yeah, I saw a tweet, and it was from one of the guys in Story Group, and I was like, okay, like, are they messing with somebody, or, because he was retweeting someone else, and I was just like, okay, like, what's going on? Clone War, like, hashtag Clone Wars saved, starting to go up a little bit right now. Let me make sure, because I don't want to raise my hopes and have them dashed. So I started doing like my investigating, looking at credible sources, people I deemed credible, and it was and tweets were coming from legit sources, people who worked at Lucasfilm, and Clone Wars is returning. We got a trailer for it as well. So
yeah, so powerful,
right?
Powerful. I'm super excited to have this story closed. Unlike you, though, I am okay with having gaps in the story not filled in.
Yeah.
I like it. So I'm happy Clone Wars is coming back, but I didn't need it to come back. Like, I know what happens. Like, I know, like, how it all kind of resolves itself. So, like, it's still, again, this goes, I think we talked about this maybe a week or two ago about, I have things in my head canon, like, for the last 20, 30 years of how things go. So it can be a little weird and it can be a little jarring for me sometimes to actually then see it played out. I'm usually pretty good with it, though. Like, going like, okay, that's the story now. My headcanon was right, my headcanon was wrong, this is what it is, or they still didn't tell this one little piece. So I was actually okay with it.
For me, this feels a little different, though. For me, this would have felt like, that they're going on this story and they're telling us this story, and at this point, like, Clone Wars was chronological. Like, they had started out doing a little anthology style and jumping all over the place, but at a certain point, they just ended up just going in order.
Yeah.
And this was pretty deep into that process. And, it felt like they were building to certain things and to certain arcs were going to end a certain way. So for me, this felt more like if suddenly, like, they were, like, after Empire, and, like, if they got halfway through production on Return of the Jedi and said, you know what, we're not going to finish Return of the Jedi. Like, that's what this felt like to me.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite that dramatic because, I mean, where it ended, it still ended on a beat that was acceptable because you still had Ahsoka leaving, and so it was just Anakin and Obi-Wan, which is what we got in Revenge of the Sith.
Well, hold on, it didn't end there. That's what you're forgetting, because we have the Netflix season, which has a lot of other content, which is only a half season. Because remember, like, for animation, they have to be much further out. So there was information about some of the other stories that they were going to be telling.
Yeah, but I mean, like, for the most, but they didn't really, I don't remember that really, like, having much, I don't remember what happened in that half season, to be honest with you. Like, for me, like, in the way I remember.
There's some great episodes in that one, dude.
Oh, that's the one with Yoda and the dad and the two kids episode. Yeah, there is some great episodes in there, but it's also,
you also have the whole thing about how Order 66 worked and, like, the little like the conspiracy to try to cover it up. That's how Rex finds out about his chip and decides to remove it eventually.
Yeah, so. I'm not saying that it's not that there's not good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessary stuff either. Like, once where it was canceled, and then, if you leave the Netflix stuff out of it, right? Where they canceled it, like, still works. Yes, the extra stuff and the stuff that we're getting now is great. It's coloring in those lines, but we still know what happens in Revenge of the Sith, right?
Like, of course, yeah. I guess, but I like there were certain. I guess there were certain beats that I knew that they wanted to hit that they didn't get a chance to hit. That's what it felt like to me.
And I agree. Yeah, that's obvious, but I guess to me it's not as necessary to tell those stories. Yeah. Like, I was satisfied. I was satisfied with it. I'm not disappointed or upset that they're doing more. That's great.
Right.
But I was satisfied. I know a lot of people are a lot more emotionally, like, they're like, I'm crying, I'm so excited. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't react that way at first, but then I ended up watching the whole panel. And then at that point, I was a little bit more in tears when the trailer popped up. Whatever, man.
It's cool.
Clone Wars worked for me.
No, it works for me too. I think I'm getting old and jaded.
Yeah,
a little bit. Where I'm just like, I don't. You
know what I think, though?
I'm happy there's stories and I love them, but I'm not, like, I'm just not as emotionally invested in everything right now.
I think yes. Well, I don't think it's just about everything, though. Clone Wars and Rebels for me have really solidified me as a Star Wars fan, because coming out of Revenge of the Sith, I was like, that was still, like, early in my sort of exploring, like, nerd stories, and Lord of the Rings was still a bit of a bigger deal for me at that point. Like, I felt like the quality was definitely a whole lot better. Like, the original trilogy is great, and it's awesome. There's so many things that I love about the original trilogy, but I didn't experience it until much later than most people. Clone Wars, I think, is what really made me a Star Wars fan. in a huge way, because you and I watching that regularly and catching up on that and talking about Star Wars, that really made me appreciate the prequels a whole lot more, because it fleshed out those characters and provided for a much more meaningful arc throughout the entire series. So I feel like Clone Wars, without Clone Wars, I wonder how much of a Star Wars fan. Like, I think I would like Star Wars a lot. I don't know if I would be a Star Wars fan in the same way if it wasn't for Clone Wars. So for me, that's a whole lot more meaningful. Let's talk about some of the details of that. So, obviously we're getting 12 new episodes for the Clone Wars, and it's expected that that's going to be it. So, this is going to be on Disney's direct-to-consumer streaming service. So we're expecting it sometime next year in 2019, where I'm not sure where. From what we understand is we're expecting the Siege of Mandalore in this series. We don't necessarily have a lot of details. We don't know how much out of the Siege of Mandalore we're going to get. Just know, I don't think they're going to go and take, the Bad Batch series and some of those animatics and turn them into full episodes. I don't think they're going to take the Asajj Ventress story or Son of Dathomir and turn those into episodes now. But I think they're going to do what they need to sort of wrap up what's going to happen with Siege of Mandalore, which is essentially a handoff right into the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, but mainly focus a little bit more on the politics of Mandalore and the big cliffhanger stories that you have in Clone Wars with what happens when Maul takes over Mandalore and takes over that planet and is this big factor to deal with suddenly in the midst of the Clone Wars. So I think that's the next big thing. Will we see Grievous kidnap Palpatine? I guess that's a possibility, or at least Palpatine work things to get kidnapped, all the machinations. So, but I mean,
I'll tell you what I think we're gonna find a resolution for Kira in this, yeah, from Solo.
I think it's a little too early for that. It is way too early for that.
When does Solo occur? Solo occurs around Revenge of the Sith time, right?
No, it's well after Revenge of the Sith. The Empire is already in power.
It can't be too... I guess it is.
It can't be too much, but...
The Empire... Yeah, it can't be well after. It has to be pretty early, because it's young Han Solo. It's not...
Right.
Because Luke is 16 to 18, something like that?
Yeah. But now we got to find out what the timeline...
Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, you're right.
But no, we won't. We definitely won't get Kira.
It would be Kira. Yeah, it's too soon. So yeah, I mistimed that. All right. Well, never mind then. That's a bummer. I'm looking forward to finding out what happens to her.
Well, and the other thing you have to remember is Crimson Dawn is what Maul pulls together probably after the Siege of Mandalore. After that Empire is taken away from him. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So. Because the Hutts are already back in power by the time we get to Solo and stuff like that. So we definitely have a lot to be really excited for as far as new Star Wars content. We will do our best to watch and read a bunch of that and let you know about it. Of course, you can always find out more about that on our website, certainpov.com. You can check out all of our other podcasts. We've got Fun and Games with Matt and Jeff, talking about video games. We've got our own Case Aiken. He's talking about tweaking movies, whether they're good or bad, but repitching them, having a fun creative exercise with them on Another Pass. And of course, we have our ridiculous shenanigans of a Star Wars D&D style adventure on the Scruffy Nerf Herders, a Star Wars D20 story. All of those podcasts you can find on our website, certainpov.com. And until next time, stay scruffy, my Nerf Herders.